recall the meeting or the recollection of a family member from one of her 16 visits to Australia. I remember my mother telling me about how she held me up as a baby as Her Majesty's motorcade passed by in 1954. Others have recalled a moment, an image or impression, perhaps one that showed Her Majesty's warmth. I will always treasure Linda's and my last call with Her Majesty when we introduced the 4 Australians of the Year for 2022. She was warm, funny and sincere in her interest in their work and our country. What I have observed from the reaction of Australians is there is no single quote or memory or moment that can define Her Majesty. All are apt, all are special. They are both individual and collectively the memories of an entire nation. Her Majesty had a special bond with Australia and admired our easygoing approach to life and sense of humour. Her visits and messages of support in good times and in difficult, sometimes tragic times have been well received. When Linda and I spoke with Her Majesty following the death of Prince Philip, the first thing she inquired about was the welfare of Australians, particularly Western Australians impacted by tropical cyclone Saroja. She was mourning the death of her husband of 73 years, yet her first question was to know how Australians in need were faring. Her care and compassion was sincere. Her Majesty shared Australia's growth and change during her reign. Throughout all of this, Her Majesty respected the will of the Australian people. She understood that we are our own people and that we control our destiny. For many of us, Her Majesty's presence in our lives provided a source of comfort and reassurance. She was a constant in our lives, a symbol of stability, inspiration and servant leadership. We have respected her and we have loved her. That love was evident in Australia and across the Commonwealth as we celebrated Her Majesty's Platinum Jubilee. At the National Service of Thanksgiving, held at St Paul's Cathedral in London in June, a passage from Philippians was read, which concluded with these words: "If there is any excellence, and if there is anything of praise, think about these things." There was certainly excellence and much cause to praise in Her Majesty's life. She consistently demonstrated tireless and selfless service, devotion to duty, and a compassion for others. These are values to which we all should aspire and hope to meet. They are as relevant today as they were 70 years ago. They will be as relevant in 70 years' time as they are today. That is her legacy, and that is her enduring gift to us all. I am proud to have lived in the second Elizabethan age. Her legacy will be profound. History will remember few like Queen Elizabeth II. We mourn her passing. We are grateful that we have witnessed and benefited from her remarkable life. May she rest in peace.
That was the Governor-General David Hurley addressing the nation, reflecting, like so many of us have today, on the life and legacy of Queen Elizabeth II, who has died overnight, aged 96, after 70 years on the throne. Jeremy, it's been a moment that's really caught a lot of people, perhaps by surprise today. The Queen's passing, not altogether unexpected, but the realisation that she has gone has triggered something in them.
And the pace of her decline, health-wise, has also been a bit of a shock. Just a couple of days ago, she was swearing in a new Prime Minister for Britain. She appeared all smiles, she appeared well. We've seen tributes today pouring out from former Prime Ministers, the current Prime Minister, right down to people who caught one brief glimpse of her and recalled what an impact that moment had on their lives. Tomorrow, the big moment is the Accession Council meeting to officially proclaim King Charles III as the new sovereign. I'm Jeremy Fernandez. Stay with us for our continuing coverage here on the ABC News channel. Thanks for your company.
After 70 years, the second Elizabethan age is over. Queen Elizabeth II passes away at Balmoral, aged 96.
Crowds have gathered at Buckingham Palace throughout the night as the United Kingdom enters 10 days of official mourning.
We are all devastated by the news that we have just heard from Balmoral. The death of Her Majesty the Queen is a huge shock to the nation and to the world.
The Queen was the first reigning sovereign to set foot on Australian soil.
Australians pay tribute and mourn the loss of our longest-serving monarch.
Queen Elizabeth II is the only reigning monarch most of us have known. Her life of faithful service will be remembered for centuries to come.
From a young girl who did not expect to be Queen,
to a beacon of service, duty and quiet dignity.
I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service and to the service of our great imperial family to which we all belong.
the Queen, who took on the job for life, became a symbol of stability and continuity throughout her 70-year reign.
Hello and welcome to this ABC News special commemorating the life of Queen Elizabeth II. I'm Sarah Ferguson.
And I'm David Spears. London Bridge is down. With those four ominous words, Buckingham Palace initiated the 10-day sequence of events which will follow the death of Queen Elizabeth II, culminating with her state funeral.
The first sign something was wrong was a highly unusual statement from the palace, raising concerns for the Queen's health. Members of the royal family rushed to Balmoral, and news quickly spread throughout the UK and the Commonwealth that this was serious.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Shortly after 6:30 p.m. London time, the official announcement, posted, as tradition dictates, on the gates of Buckingham Palace.
At the same time, the Queen's representative in Australia, the Governor-General, informed the Prime Minister and made the announcement here in the early hours of the morning.
Today we mourn the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. The news of her passing, while we knew it to be inevitable, has still shocked, prompted reflection and an outpouring of affection.
Her heir and eldest son, Charles, automatically became king at the moment of his mother's death, to be known as King Charles III. He paid tribute to the Queen. I know her loss will be deeply felt throughout the country, the realms and the Commonwealth, and by countless people around the world.
This formal process is considered vital to reassure people, the vast majority of whom have never known another monarch. It's more than 70 years since the United Kingdom last had a king, George VI.
This precise plan was approved by the Queen herself. She helped design the ceremonies which allow for mourning, but also demonstrate the continuity of tradition.
Flags around the Commonwealth are flying at half-mast tonight, until they're raised again tomorrow. Last night, one era ended, and today, a new one began. As this new era begins, a carefully choreographed plan known as Operation Unicorn is now unfolding tonight to transport the Queen's body from Balmoral to Edinburgh, before finally making its way to London.
Let's bring in our correspondents. Nick Dole is at Balmoral Castle in Scotland.
And Isabella Higgins is at Buckingham Palace in London.
Nick, to you first. Operation Unicorn's begun. What will the first phase look like?
Well, right now at Balmoral, the royal household and the royal family are preparing to send the Queen off from this summer home that she loved so much. Balmoral was so important to her. She spent her childhood here. She had a courtship with the Prince here, and she took her grandchildren and great-grandchildren here. So it holds a very special place in her heart. From this point, she's going to be taken first by road. She's then expected to link up with a rail link closer to Aberdeen, which will take her down to Edinburgh. First, her body will be taken to Holyrood House, but shortly thereafter it will move to St Giles Cathedral, and in between that it will go down the Royal Mile, and we can expect to see thousands of people lining the Royal Mile. From Edinburgh, there are plans to take her via plane, but it is expected that a train will be used, a royal train, to take her to London. First, her body will be transported to Buckingham Palace, her official London residence, of course, but later to Westminster Hall, where there will be an opportunity while she lies in state for thousands, potentially hundreds of thousands of people to come and pay their respects. This is a period of mourning. Certainly there is a feeling of sadness in the air, but the reaction here, I think, is one more of relief. Relief that the Queen was able to continue performing her duties right up until the end, and that was so important to her. Relief that this illness, at least publicly facing, wasn't protracted, and relief that members of her family were able to be close to her when she died. And I think people here are taking some comfort in that.
And Isabella, crowds there at Buckingham Palace are still growing. How has the UK responded this morning?
Well, Sarah, it certainly feels like we are witnessing an extraordinary day in British history. Here just outside of Buckingham Palace, it feels like life has come to a standstill. There's no commuters, no morning traffic at what is usually a very busy intersection. There will be no changing of the guards outside of Buckingham Palace, so these modern and ancient routines have been brought to a standstill. Instead, they've been replaced with the world's media and, of course, hundreds upon hundreds of well-wishers who have come to pay their respects to a much-loved sovereign, Queen Elizabeth II. The news the world had anticipated but wasn't ready for.
A few moments ago, Buckingham Palace announced the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
It's quite upsetting, really. You know, just that feeling in your stomach, you don't really know what to say.
As the news spread, crowds outside the palace grew, hundreds turning out to pay tribute and share their grief. Staying well into the night, rain nor darkness could deter them.
She had an impact through all generations.
And people from all walks of life. London's iconic black cabs coming to a standstill outside the palace. Flags are now flying at half-mast, a sobering reminder of the one great constant in life across the UK and the Commonwealth.
And we've all known just one queen. She's the person we've always looked up to.
I've never been a royalist, so I don't know why I've been so affected by it, but I really am.
I think I've always looked up to her. I think especially for a woman to be in such a high position.
From one leading woman to another, the Queen carried on with official duties right up until the end, appointing her 15th and final Prime Minister during her reign.
Through thick and thin, Queen Elizabeth II provided us with the stability and the strength that we needed.
United in grief, leaders across the UK shared their tributes.
For the vast majority of us, the late Queen has been simply the Queen, the only Queen.
By all accounts, Her Majesty was really happier than when she was here in Scotland at her beloved Balmoral.
For 70 years, the Queen has been a revered figure, an anchor of stability. Steering the monarchy into the digital age, she helped the world keep calm and carry on through many a crisis.
All right, should be getting the train home, but it just feels a bit too normal to, I don't know, to carry on.
Perhaps the Queen had one last message to share. Through the coming hours and days, we expect the crowds here to only grow, but the mood is one of mixed emotion, of remembrance and recognition for a much-loved monarch, but also perhaps of unease and anticipation as the reign of a queen ends and that of a new king begins.
Isabella Higgins and Nick Dole, thank you very much.
No other British monarch has served as long as Elizabeth II.
Through decades of upheaval and change, until the very end, the Queen demonstrated unwavering devotion to her people and the Commonwealth.
A young woman made a promise that she never broke.
I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service and to the service of our great imperial family to which we all belong.
The times in which the Queen began her reign bear little resemblance to the world of today, and yet the Queen's essential qualities saw her through it all. Her prodigious capacity for hard work and her ability to remain constant, yet adaptable.
The 20th century saw so much change and into the 21st. And one thing that I admire the most about her was the fact that she was always ready to adapt to that change. She never dug her heels in and said, look, I became Queen in 1952, this is the kind of Queen I'm going to be. As what we expected of her as Queen changed, she changed to fill that role.
Queen Elizabeth met, advised and outlasted dozens of world leaders and figures, including 15 Australian Prime Ministers, starting with Sir Robert Menzies.
I did but see her passing by, and yet I loved her till I died.
In the UK, she advised every Prime Minister every week for decades on the major issues of the moment. They were discussed, dissected, but never made public.
I've just been watching on television.
Oh, probably what
Prime Minister's questions.
Well, it's a bit less noisy than it used to be. I don't know if that comes across on the TV.
Well, I suppose it is, probably, yes.
The Queen never thought of her will being pushed onto her Prime Ministers. They come to her, they speak to her, and if they want to take her advice, they can. And they usually did, because it's not, you don't often get in any kind of country a statesman with that kind of experience.
As an infant, Elizabeth was not destined to be Queen, but after the abdication of her uncle, Edward VIII, her father became King George VI, and as his eldest child, she was next in line to the throne. The coronation of England's second Queen Elizabeth at Westminster Abbey was the first ever to be televised.
I think the Queen embodied a sense of duty. She was not born to be Queen, of course. When she was born, she was third in line to the throne and not expecting to ever become the monarch. But once she realised at the age of 10 that she was, her destiny was assured, she took to it like a duck to water, and she just had this sense of duty which she carried out for the rest of her life.
The Queen's sense of duty was shared with her husband, Prince Philip, who was by her side for 73 years.
Teachers, are you, in the school?
Yes, all teachers and health workers.
Signs of intelligence.
It's the age-old phrase of it's lonely at the top. And when she had Prince Philip, she had someone, let's say, on the next step down, holding her hand.
The world got a sense of that loneliness when she was forced to mourn him at the height of COVID restrictions. 3 decades earlier, the Queen faced one of her toughest public tests.
"1992 is not a year on which I shall look back with undiluted pleasure. In the words of one of my more sympathetic correspondents, it has turned out to be an annus horribilis."
The late 80s and 90s saw the Queen's children embroiled in scandal and controversy, including the marriage breakdown of the heir to the throne, Prince Charles